I'll start off with the 3 questions everyone asks me right off the bat, and then you guys can ask me anything you want. So the first one I get is, tell me a little about yourself. I think you probably heard enough of that. I can tell you as much as you want, but currently 3 kids, age 27, 25, 23, married to 32 years to my husband, Channing. Went to Colorado College, met him there, did some graduate work, went to the Peace Corps with him. Came back, went to Purdue University. We earned our PhDs there. This is just the crib notes. Postdoc in Denmark, and then back to Purdue. And soon enough off to Mozambique to live for 6 years, where he was an advisor of the government. And I was at the American School as a middle school principal, IB coordinator. And I was working at night online for a university called Walden, because as we all know, sometimes we fit our careers around other people in our lives, and that's something we do. When it came time to move back from Mozambique, we moved right back to Fort Collins, and we were looking at houses all over the city. And our oldest daughter said, "Can we ride our bikes to Libby?" Libby James is my mom, so we call her Libby, not Grandma. "Can we ride our bikes to Libby's from there?" And I said, "No." And she said, "Well, if we're gonna move from Mozambique to Fort Collins to be near Libby, why don't we live near Libby?" And I was like, good idea. So I called my mom, and she marched across City Park, and she found this house and said, "You're going to live at 16 West Mulberry." And I said, "Okay, yep, I will." Flew in from Mozambique, said, "I'll take it." Flew out, and that's how I came to live back in my exact home precinct without even realizing the political units like that. And it's a pleasure. A 100-year-old guy was walking around the block the other day, and we stopped and talked. And, of course, I knew his kids and grandkids. And it's just kind of neat to be back in your neighborhood. Chuck Kavalik, I bet you guys know him. And so those sorts of neat things happen. Another thing that happened was people from my past came and asked me to run for office, knowing of my civic engagement throughout my life. So I said, well, how about if I just get involved? So I'm now on to question 2, which is, how did you get involved? And frankly, you serve your community and your family, your neighborhood, and then your city in different ways. And then people will ask you, as you guys know, I know you know, they ask you, it's a tar baby. Do you do something else? Then next thing, I'm on the Commission of Disabilities, because that's my professional background for the city. And then I went to recruiting candidates for school board and these sorts of things. Eventually, I ran for Randy Fisher's seat, which was Peggy Reeves' seat, which was Bob Bacon's seat, which was Angie Pajoni's seat. So it's not really their seats, it's just the seat, and we come and go on that. And then the mayor's race is an open race. So third question, why am I running for mayor? I honestly think we have a unique opportunity to no less than show the United States how it's done in a civil way. I do a lot of work in civil discourse, where as a trained facilitator for other legislators, a Democrat and a Republican, we're always paired equally. So it'll be 4 and 4, 2 and 2, depending on how big the group is where we're requested to go. We've done the whole legislatures of Idaho, Minnesota, Delaware, and then we did the Majority Leaders Conference. And it's basically a big, long empathy workshop. We're not asking people to change their values or their votes. We're asking them to get to know each other and close the door and really walk through where you're coming from and why you see things the way you do. And it's been very rewarding. We've had tears, we've had confessions, we've had hugs and friendships. I don't for 1 minute think the pro-life person is now pro-choice or the pro-choice person is now pro-life, but I do think they understand where they're coming from. That's just an example of one hot button issue we address, but all the others come up as well. So through that work, you think about how you want your community to look, and we want our community to look just like us, right? So then we're going to talk about equity and inclusion and inclusivity and building a city where we can have everyone who works here lives here. Living in Africa all those years where you had people who couldn't afford to live in the city drive in, bus in every day. and bus out. Those were not strong communities. Those were tilted socioeconomically to where you can see the strife and the lack of cohesion is evident when we don't include people. My personal passion is considering people with personal physical mobility issues, in addition to all the racial, ethnic, socioeconomic integration that we have work to do in Fort Collins. I used to go to the night meetings at the city, and the city manager asked me, so how come you're the only one here from the Council on Disabilities? I said, I'm the only one not in a wheelchair. And if transport stops at 6, they can't get here unless they have an adapted car. And he goes, I didn't even think that. And I said, how about a ride voucher for everybody? And he said, oh, absolutely. So some of these things, we just have a long way to go. Have you ever thought if you're in a wheelchair, you can't really run for city council or school board? First of all, there's the mobility thing, and it's the times we meet, right? The onerousness of that. So we have a lot of ways to go on just those issues. And then that, I haven't even touched the issue of being inclusive, ethnically, racially, linguistically, and socioeconomically. And then we can get into affordable housing, all those other issues that wrap around that. So why am I running for mayor? I really feel like this is a really time that we can take a great community. We're going to reemerge as something completely different than what we were. We're not our retail, right? Have you been to the mall lately? Oh, I was at Macy's today. I want to cry, right? We're reimagining how we live, work, play, learn, and shop, and dine. So let's get together and reemerge, just as cool as we've always been, but stronger. So that's my pitch. That's why I'm running for mayor.